Hey guys, welcome back to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. I'm Marie, aka Vevna Forrow. So previously on the podcast, we were discussing distribution solutions, right? It is tough to handle inventory, of issues and the shipping of that. So again, there are places out there that lit mags, journals, or presses founding editors can apply to. Once their series is vetted and everything like that, they either get an acceptance or a decline, right? And yeah, so if you can't get into any distribution places, right, I covered some alternative solutions, right? There are, of course, POD, print on demand places. There are some out there that do drop shipping. And yeah, or even, you could do it all solo yourself. I know some editors, have converted their, where they live, maybe it's their apartment or home into, or even attic or space or parts of their home to store everything, right? Their garage, even inventory wise, and then they use some sort of additional software to track all of that, right? And yeah, so it's tough, right, to go about it solo, but I tried to cover, places I heard about in the community, and also from going off of the community of literary magazines and presses, the list they have out there once the SPD closure happened, right? A lot of places had used SPD, and when that got shut down, they were like, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna go? So listen back to that episode if you're curious about the distribution side of literary magazines, journals, and presses, especially if you're looking for assistance with that. There are ways to go about that. Get into more physical bookshops and locations. Your series distribution places can help you do that. They have marketing teams. They have others in place to really facilitate that further. So you're not just by yourself, right? And I think that's really cool. I also, if you just love reading, again, I covered, some bookshops and online bookstores too that some of the distribution places also run and facilitate. So yeah, listen back to that totally if you're interested, and we're gonna dive back in here to some lit mag journals and presses again. And yeah, so early in the series again, you can maybe listen more so to some tips, but I try to do a mixture on this podcast again for publishers and submitters. So Scrawl Place, as you can see, if you're on YouTube or Spotify again, you can watch video and see my screen too. That is spelled SCRAWLPLACE. So, as you can see here on the website, it states it's a magazine for readers who prefer Basho to Lonely Planet. Now, if you're not familiar with Basho, the name is fairly well known, right? So, on Poetry Foundation's site, if you go off to it here, um, Basho, you can see it says here, just quoting off the top sentence here, 17th century Japanese haiku master Basho. He was born with the name Matsuo Kinsaku, though. And yeah, near Kyoto, Japan. So yeah, and it says in a little bit more about Basho. I'm not going to read all of it, but yeah, I have, I've read some poems in Japanese myself, or I've tried to. And who knows, I may have covered some fun apps, in the poetry world too on this podcast, or some other additional tools and resources tying into that, because I just thought of something. So hint, hint, that may be an upcoming episode too sometime. But for those of you unaware, if you also look up just BASHO, without the line on above the O, right? That also Basho itself means I think place or location in Japanese. And I think if you do a Google search, right, it comes up also, it could refer to like a grand portion of a sumo wrestling tournament, right? Not entirely sure, but I think that's what I recall when I was searching it up the other day. But yeah, so let's go back out here to Scrawl Place. So I'm going to do the usual, right, coverage, telling you a little bit about it and the guidelines and all the stats. So let's get started. I'm going to go off to submissions here. So these are the submission guidelines, but it also covers here, right, about it. So Scrawl Place is a literary journal disguised as a visitor's guide. The audience for this online publication is the guest, the visitor, the traveler, the day tripper, the out-of-towner, and the in-towners eager to wander. It says here they're looking for submissions about places in the places, where you live or where you visited. It states here that the editor is, the editor has the aspiration that readers will visit the places you write about and be inspired to write about those places themselves. And yeah, so I'll come back to this, but yeah, the current guidelines are here and everything, so we'll come back to this. But let's head off to chill subs here. So on chill subs, right, they've been bookmarked 643 times. And you're probably like, wow, that's a lot of times, right? And reason being, right, again, typically places that are able to pay poets or writers for their work, right, artists even, right, they're able to pay writers, right? $35 per, I think, acceptance or piece. I'm not sure. I'll read the guidelines for you in a bit here. Well, that's awesome. So Scrawl Place pays writers for their work. The acceptance rate here is showing from Chill Sub's track report is tracker stats 6.42%. So it's not a super high acceptance rate, but yeah, and that's not maybe it depends on how many entered their tracker stats. So we can see the breakdown here. There have been 255 submissions tracked, 11 accepted, 139 rejected, pending 33, and withdrawn 8. And yeah, they are currently, I think I saw on social media a while ago, not too long ago, right, that they're open for submissions. I didn't see a deadline or anything specified, and I don't think I see a deadline on calls here, but yeah. It could be just when they hit their caps or have a high volume reached, or for I don't really know how the whole deadline works at Scrawl Place, but maybe we'll come across it here. I'm not sure. But yeah, so the average response time is showing 31 days, fastest response time 11 days, max response time 30 days. So yeah, and there looks like there's also a 12-month average acceptance rate, 3.39%. And yeah, and we have here the calls, right? So the theme, right? Places, right? Obviously. And yeah, there can be up to 3 pieces, and again, the pay is $35. So yeah. Now, again, editors have to update this. So, again, I don't really see any deadlines here or anything like that. So, that's the only thing I'm not sure about that for you guys. But no fee, right? No fee to submit. That's great. And yeah, so if we go over to the overview. So, let's head over down below past the highlights section, right? On Chill Subs, if we go here, states that Scrawl Place was founded in 2021 out of the United States, right? And the only fixed criteria is that your submission be about or connected to or associated with a specific physical place that someone could visit. The more specific the place, the better. How that manifests in terms of content, style, and form is up to you. The place you write about could be a wonder of the world, a random street corner that means something to you, or anything in between. The aspirational hope is that readers will think of you and your words if they ever happen to visit the places you write about. Then maybe write some words of their own and start a dialogue across time and space. So yeah, I don't always go into the awards or industry ranking sections, but let's just check it out. So Scrawl Place has awards one here, right? Best small fictions, industry ranking, fish list looks like it was 139 out of 1,830. Brecht, I always mispronounce that. I apologize. Brecht's name, BRECHT, and then yeah, 457 out of 1,000, right, for prose. And the masthead, if we expand that, right, Andy Brown is the editor in chief, and I will read a little bit more about Andy Brown shortly here for you guys. So in the collection section on Chill Subs, right, we have lit mags who love prose poems, and it appears also in the list of 5 lit mags who do things a little differently. Lit mags featured in best small fictions anthologies, and again, the place collections list, yeah? So there are other lit mags and journals out there that focus on travel writing, and place type of writing, poetry, or, stories even. So you can check that out later, and maybe I'll click into that for you guys towards the end or something. But yeah, let's head back over to the Scrawl Place website, yeah? And I will cover some of the guidelines and a few more things too. So again, the checklist here, right? And yeah, let me actually let's read a little bit about Andy Brown, the editor-in-chief that I just mentioned, then we'll go back here too. But in the about section, so this is Andy Brown. So I don't always read about founding editors, but from time to time I do. So yeah, Scrawl Place is edited by Andy Brown, who is a full-time freelance writer and writing coach. It says here, I'm quoting this off the site, after earning an MFA in creative writing, Andy started his career as a journalist and editor. Determined to learn all aspects of the publishing industry, he even sold advertising. After honing his sales skills, Andy combined his experiences to become a successful publisher, setting strategy and managing sales, editorial, marketing, and production staff for several organizations. In 2014, Andy realized a lifelong dream to work for himself, doing what he loves most, writing and wandering. So yeah, Andy also had a Chill Subs interview not too long ago. Well, I mean, I think it was a couple years ago, but I came across it just today, actually. So I thought I just would quote it off for you guys over here. Some things that stood out to me. So this Chill Subs interview was back on November 6th, 2022. And yeah, so it really highlights, the journey or start of Scrawl Place and some things that, were, asked about it, right? So, the vibe of it, of course, right? It says part visitor's guide, part literary journal again. But the part I want to quote off for you guys here is right here towards the end, not end, but portion of it. So again, Andy mentions, he has, the places he likes to write about, and I think we all, have places we love to write about, right? We have so many memories tied into road trips, right? As I shared on this podcast too, right? Also flights and international travel, right? I was talking about that back on Tokyo Poetry Journal and even Carmelarchy, right? Those episodes, if you listen back or dig through the episodes, just sharing some travel memories, right? Because it comes up, when you think about some of the things that lit mags and journals focus on, right? And places, we all have, I think, for sure, a place that's very, close to our heart or one we never forgot. You could say some places make us feel at home, right? Or very comfortable, or they're places we want to keep traveling to or keep collecting memories with those places, right? Or, creating them there. And yeah, so he states in the interview his favorite places, but I like this part that Andy has here. Let me see if I can find it for you guys real quick. So right here, I lost my place, guys. Oh, yeah, here. Okay, so this part is what I want to quote off for you guys. Yeah. So Andy states here, writing about, places, right? Or a place is a way of sharing an experience. He says here that he likes the idea that the meanings of a place can be shared, contested, negotiated, dialogued, and so on through creative work. And yeah, um, we have so many, again, experiences and memories tied to places again. So I think that's really cool. And Andy goes in here and, he mentions, I think he lived in Las Vegas too. And again, for those who listening to just this episode first, right? I'm, originally from Minnesota, but I've been in Nevada since 2017. And yeah, so it's really cool, the all the places that exist in the world. There's so much you could do writing wise around that, right? But what Andy really highlights in this interview, right, he says to be, again, just reiterating, if you're going to submit to Scrawl Place or any place in general, you want to be very specific what you're talking about, right? The place. Andy in this interview was stating things like he's received submissions where or some that were very, general, right? They weren't an actual place you could put a pin on a map, right? Like, almost like a GPS pinpoint or a physical location, right? Others were submitting things from time to time, or maybe they still are. Like the place he quotes, I'm quoting this off the article, right, or interview, was a place in their mind, right? So it wasn't actual like a physical location you could like visit and travel. So that's what you really want to keep in mind, right? It has to be a place others could travel to visit physically, right? And yeah, that actually exists. And yeah, so again, he has the rules mentioned in the interview, right? Can you pin the place on a map, right? Could readers visit the place if they want to, right? That's what you have to keep in mind, right? Those two main points. And it's pretty interesting. Again, some lit mags and journals, founding editors have done interviews. I've seen them, linked out on Duotrope. Chill Subs has interviews. So does Lit Mag News, run by Becky. Right, there's some cool video one-on-ones and also articles that others type out and contribute to the Lit Mag News. So that's really cool. But yeah, I'm not gonna cover all of this interview by any means, but you can check it out. Sometimes Chill Subs updates their site page or site pages, and yeah, but you can check it out in your downtime. I think it's helpful to read interviews too that lit mags or journal founding editors have done. I've even come across some podcast episodes, be outside of mine, right, where others have talked with founding editors and just learned about how they started, the challenges of running one too, and that can help you as well. I don't know if I'll ever do interviews on this podcast, but I'm thinking about doing another segment of this. There's a lot of video of me just talking, right? So I think it'd be cool to maybe share some other founding editors experiences through this channel that I'm doing, or some of the channels for sure. I'll let you guys know if I do anything like that. If I perhaps do it, it might be more so a typed format, perhaps. I'm not sure yet. I'm deciding whether it be video or just something typed out, because there's a lot of video content already. So I maybe, yeah, I'll let you guys know. I never do any interviews type stuff myself, but I sort of tried to take a break from that because I was, also running Dippity Lit Mag and Dippity Press, right? And when I first started my first podcast, right, I did more so of like a conversational type episodes, filling in with commentary. But I took a break from that because how much time it took up, right? But I think it's good to pick the brain of other founding editors, lit mags, journals, and presses out there. So this could help you as a submitter, right? Just reading the interviews that some editors have out there. Not everyone has one, but they exist. So yeah, they exist, so you can check it out. So let's head back over to Scrawl Place's website, right? I was on the submissions page last, and yeah. So again, um, just like the checklist for submissions, again, I stated this earlier, right? The place should be real, tangible place. The place should actually exist, on a map. Can you pin on a map? Does the place have a name, right? If the place does not have a name, it is probably not specific enough for Scrawl Place. Can you take a photo of the place, right? This is not an absolute requirement, but if the place cannot be captured in a photo, an example, it's impossible to take a photo of America, right? That's too broad, too overall, right? It's not specific enough. It is probably, again, not specific enough for the journal. Is the place your home or the moon? The place should not be your personal home, the bottom of the ocean, the moon, or any other place that is generally impossible for readers to visit. So what to submit, right? It says here CNF, fiction, poetry, hybrid. Yeah. A length, there are no length requirements as of August 11th, 2022. So yeah, that stands as of 2025 still. It says submit 1 to 3 pieces at a time in the same document, so up to 3. And I always suggest, right, if some place is telling you can submit up to 3, submit up to 3 or 3, right? Do it to the max, right? Because you never know, right? If they don't like the first piece, maybe there's a chance, that the editor really enjoyed the other pieces in your submission, right? So always try to submit to the max, right, that they allow. $35 per piece. That's great. Not a lot of places are able to pay writers for the work. In that interview I was reading that Andy had, by the way, on Chill Subs, right? Through Chill Subs. So he was stating, right, I think earlier, by the way, I have submitted to Scrawl Place in the past myself. The first time I ever submitted, right, I got a decline. And maybe I'll try, I think I've submitted, I tried again. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know. I just do it, from time to time, my downtime. I don't, heavily submit a bunch, and I'm breaking actually from submitting to places. But travel poetry, travel writing is something that I really love, though, personally. I have mentioned on this podcast, some memories and things, and maybe I'll circle back to that towards the end of this podcast, but I want to focus on the guideline coverage for you guys. So again, $35 per piece. And Andy in that interview stated that he, again, I think he writes for a living, right? And I think he's done, right, freelance work. So he I remember he had on the site Scrawl Place back when I submitted. I think it was like within the past 2-3 years, right? Um, that he was, using his own salary, right, to pay writers. I could be wrong, but anyways, some founding editors of Lit Magazine Journals do that. They use their own, salary, and they take out of that and pay writers for their work and stuff, right? For or cover cost of the operations of the Lit Mag Journal out of their own pocket. So I think it's really nice that Andy goes out his way to try to pay writers for the work and sustain it. He mentions in that interview back in 2022, was it, right? Or when was that? November 6th, 2022. Yeah. He mentioned back in that interview that, he wasn't sure, the longevity of a late night journal, oftentimes, you're not sure, are you going to keep going year after year after year? You just try to go as long as you can, right? With your lit manga journal. And yeah, he mentions, he wanted to be able to pay writers for work. And I think, writers, artists, they should be paid for their work, right? Not everyone can do so. So I think that's awesome that, $35 per piece is cool, right? And it says paid within 30 days of acceptance, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay, or Zelle. Yeah, and then I think Zelle wasn't it like didn't they discontinue like a mobile app of that or something, or now it's only integrated into some banks. I could be wrong. Anyway, something happened with Zelle recently. I can't remember what it was, or I could be wrong. But um, where to submit and response time. So it says you can send your submission through Submittable, link at the bottom of the page. So yeah, Scrawl Place does have a submission management system. They use Submittable. Again, I always say I've said this on a couple episodes, but um, the Lit Mag Journal Press I run, right? We recently, this summer we left Submittable for Subfolio. So there are episodes where I cover that, and you can, listen to that too. But Submittable, yeah, that's great. A lot of places use that, but it's I think Subfolio again for me was just um hit a lot of the things that I was looking for personally for submission management system. And yeah. And it says here the average response time is 4 weeks. Cover letters are optional, but it says please provide a third person bio. And rights, one of the most important things, right? Writers retain all rights to their work. Scrawl Place requests a non-exclusive license to 1. Publish your work in an e-newsletter, 2. Archive your work on the website so long as the site exists, and 3. Excerpt your work for use and promotion. Simultaneous subs and previous published work. So Scrawl Place encourages simultaneous submissions. Scrawl Place accepts previous published work. So yeah, that's great. There aren't a ton of places that take previous published work that I'm aware of. But they do exist, right? Tons like Scrawl Place, and yeah. And you can, of course, if you're ever unsure about guidelines or something, you can always send an email off. The one thing I would say is I'm not really sure again about deadlines and stuff. So yeah, if we click into here, I guess I could maybe show you guys. Let me see. Yeah, so you can see here the guidelines are just reiterated and submittable. This is what the page looks like. And if you go in, it looks like this. So yeah, you just enter your title of submission. Every Lit Mag and journal has a little bit different form field set up. So I'm just showing you what it looks like for Scrawl Place, right? So where is the place or places your submission is about, connected to, or associated with. Cover letter is optional again. Bio in third person. You attach your files and agree to terms of use. That's basically it. And yeah, so again, some Lit Magazine journals use a submission management system. It could be Submittable, it could be something else. Again, we use Subfolio, right? Some use form builders, right? I have some episodes that cover that, but just showing you what it looks like. Yeah. So when you're doing your titles of your submission, I think it's always a good idea to, type out the full title, not be very vague, and just do. I used to just do like 1 poem, 2 poems, or 3 poems, but it's good to type out the title in full and to break it. You could use a divider of some sort, a forward slash between titles. I like doing that. It also makes it easier to search in your, submission management system on your submitter profile, right? To easily define things. But yeah, so that's basically the submission guidelines of Scrawl Place. So let's go back and let's dig around on the journal, right? Let's go into the read portion, right? Let's see what's out there, how it looks. Yeah, so in the upper right again, we have a search that's great. And you can see here, we have some pieces, some new pieces since I last visited. I visited Scroll Place within the last 2 weeks, so there are some new pieces up. I think, yes, the last piece I saw up when I was back visiting was Sedona. So there's been quite a few pieces published since then. Yeah, so you can see there's a hospital, right? The blue whale of Catoosa, right? So I think this is another great way, guys, personally, right, to find places to travel to or check out that may be quite interesting. If you're like a travel enthusiast, like this is probably like something you'll really love. Yeah. Um, if we scroll down, I'm just gonna scroll down for a bit to show you guys, and then maybe click into one of these. But yeah, you can see that, and it's really cool. So some of these are poems, and some of these are stories, right? And yeah, you can see here Minneapolis, right? Yeah, I'm from Minnesota myself, Minneapolis, Minnesota. So this is Lake Nokomis. So yeah. So I don't know if I've been out there, possibly on maybe when I was younger, or maybe school food field trips. Possibly I was in Minnesota for most of my life, so it's possible I went out there. It looks very familiar to me. Yeah, I've been to various lakes in Minnesota, especially when I was younger. So yeah, I'm gonna have to read that piece. Yeah, a lot of cool places, guys. The wildlife museums. So yeah, if you're someone who likes writing about places, or where you go to visit, or something new you want to check out, I think it's pretty fun. So yeah, this is really cool. So I'm gonna click into one of these. Let's just go into the Sedona one. I've been to Scottsdale, and yeah, I think I've also been out. If I recall, sometime after age 11, I visited, I think, Sedona too. Like, did a road trip, and yeah, I think I mentioned this podcast somewhere. But yeah, let's scroll down. So what's really cool, what Andy does, by the way, you can see here that there is a Google Square map, right, with the pinpoint of the place, right? So you can see the Chapel of the Holy Cross, right? And it's right there, I think that's really nice. So then others could maybe look it up and find where it is. Maybe, if they're reading the journal, they're like, oh, I know, I've lived near this place. I could maybe check it out. I've never been there before. Or maybe it's a place they want to go visit, or maybe they're taking a trip somewhere and the place is like maybe nearby where they're going too. So I don't know. It's a good way to find places. I think it's cool to see it on a pinpoint, right? To be placed on a map. So yeah, and the work is there, and then at the bottom is the map. If you're watching the video. So yeah, and then there the so the way Andy has it set up. So these aren't necessary photos by the submitter. You can see here, it has the photo credits, right? Wikimedia Commons. Yeah, so it has a CC license, right? Creative Commons license. And yeah, I can't recall, but maybe clicking to some of these, I'm not sure if any of these are photos contributed by the submitter. There might be, but yeah, it's always a good idea, if you're going to start a lit mag or journal or run to always do photo credits. Yeah. So yeah, that's it's not always absolutely necessary to have a photo from the submitter itself or something like that. Every lit mag's a little bit different. I know some lit mags and journals do place photos sometimes that submitters have to pair with submissions. At Deputy Lit Mag, right, we did that in our legacy series, right? For example, with our antique series, right? We had the photo, the poem, an actual photo of the antique and the poem, and yeah. But yeah, nevertheless, I think it's really cool to have, the photo and then the work below it, and the, about the poet or writer, and then the Google Maps square. I think that's a cool, right? I especially really love this guy, so I'm gonna go over here and show you. So there's this country guide section that Andy has created. I think this is really cool. It's a great layout. You have browse by country. So there are outlines of each country, right? And yeah, so you can see there's Argentina, Austria, Canada, China, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Dominican Republic, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Nigeria, Norway, Pakistan, Peru, Philippines, Portugal, Russia, Singapore, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, Thailand, Turkey, and the United States. So, yeah, if you click into these, like the United States, right, then you get into specific states. And then if you drill further down, and let's go out to, well, let's see how many are under Minnesota, my home state. Let's see. So we have two pieces. You can see these are specific places again that were written about, right? So yeah, Lake Nomoy. Oh my gosh, this lake in Minneapolis, right? Nokomis, right? And then yeah, so that's cool, right? And yeah, and this one's inspired by the Mississippi River Gorge, yeah. So let's see what we have for Nevada. I'm just checking out the places that I have, been in predominantly for, most of my life. So yeah, so one by Las Vegas, of course. So yeah, a prose poem. So that's cool. Yeah, so I think it's another great way to, find places to visit or check out or to learn more about, you can learn more about the world or different places in the world. And I think you can even do research on them and learn more about them yourselves after reading and yeah, see if it's like a place you want to maybe check out one day. Let's see what's under Canada. So we have some tied to British Columbia. It looks like there's a diner, right, in Victoria, British Columbia. And there are some stories. And yeah, there's a poem inspired by the Cottonwood Falls in Nelson, British Columbia. There's Clover Point Park in British Columbia, and and Vancouver, Canada poems. So yeah, you can read more about the places. Click into these, read the works. Obviously, I'm not going to click into all of these, but yeah, I think that's really cool. So yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So I was right. Yeah. So some of them are actually submitter contributed photos. So you can see here, this one is actually by the writer, right? Yeah. So this photo was I'm gonna mispronounce names, but the name here is Karin, right? It could be Karen or Corinne. Corinne. I apologize. I completely messed up names, but yeah, you can see a bakery and diner. So that's awesome. Dutch bakery and diner since 1956. So six, it says yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I love bakeries, guys. By the way. So yeah, some of these photos are from submitters, and some of them aren't. So I think that's really cool that he does that. Sometimes may ask for photos or someone say, hey, I have a photo. Do you want to use it? I don't know how that works, but nevertheless, I think that's cool that these are a mix between, Creative Common photos and actual photos from the submitters. I think it's really awesome to be able to see, have some more sort of picture visual to accompany them. Obviously, some places just have a standalone poem or story without any sort of visual, but I think with like travel writing, I really like seeing photography or some sort of, picture, right, associated with the work. I'm just like a visual person, so I like seeing it and like, oh, that place looks cool. I'm going to check it out. Even if you solely take away the photos itself and read about the place, I think you still can have a lot of great imagery there alone. But I think it's cool for, travel writing to see this place physically exists and this is what it looks like in a photograph captured in this moment in time. So yeah, this is really awesome. I must say the country guide browse by country is really cool. Yeah, so I really like this layout. I think it's a really nice site design to have this grid of countries, and others can click into these, right? So yeah, and then the Singapore airport. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think I've covered, Scrawl Place. Yeah. They do have again a duotrope page listing too. So it basically outlines again the guidelines and the topics, right? Travel and allows reprints and everything, and nonfiction, fiction, right? Poetry, right? And prose, right? Yeah, basically what was listed out on chill subs and the site, and you can see the length requirements and stuff. So that's great. So yeah, you can see 126 members marked this as a favorite on Duotrope. And I have some episodes that cover Duotrope again, and some other, a little bit on Duosuma and Duotrope submission management system. So you can listen back to all that. I think that's pretty much it. So just some additional bonus content for you guys. So yeah, I mentioned on this podcast, right? Some road trips and some places I never forgot. Till this day, there's some places, I have, right. We all have photos and scrapbooks, right, collected. And my mom, again, used to do a lot of scrapbooking. She used to put these fun comic bubbles. I mentioned this on the podcast. Sorry if this is a repeat, but thought bubbles, but on some of the photos of me, when I was little, trying out food, visiting museums, and all kinds of stuff. She would try to um, create some fun things, like almost that I would, not actually say, but just some fun LOL things, right? And thought bubbles and stuff, and comic bubbles, like those ones you see, and yeah, so it's so LOL. But yeah, the last time I traveled, internationally was back when I was, 11 years old. And I was saying on this podcast, right, that it was, right, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And yeah, that was like the last place I traveled to internationally back when I was 11. And along the way, I went to the Singapore airport, and then Osaka, Japan, the airport, and some stops along the way. So after age 11, and I've been out to that side of the world probably 3 4 times or so, most of the time when I was little, so I have no recollection fully of every single moment. But if I look at through some photos, it jogs my memory of some memories and things I never forgot, obviously, right? The food and stuff like that, and some places that are, there, right? And yeah, like the tower, and the neighborhood of my grandparents' place, and the various mega mall we went to, the movie theater I never forgot. And yeah, so there yeah, there are some things you just never forget. No matter what age you are, of course when you get older sometimes your memory gets fuzzy, but there places have so hold so many memories for us, right? And I think if you're going to write travel poetry, right, it helps to have photos, right, with your memories, right, to capture that moment. And it helps you really think back, right, to, oh yeah, we saw this, we did this, right? Because it's hard to remember every single thing moment for moment. So I think a series of photographs for places you visit in time really help you. Yeah. So what else? So I mentioned that. And yeah, one of the most memorable road trips I had was out to Virginia Beach with my folks when the car broke down. And then also, I've been out to, again, Sedona, Scottsdale road trips, but I think one of my all-time favorite places in Minnesota was definitely Lutzen, Minnesota. And yeah, I never forgot that the experience, going up there with my folks. And it was just like, it gave like this cool, like cozy cabin like feel, that memory I had. And it was just so chill and calm, just seeing there's this place with the rocks and water I mentioned, right? The Lutzen Resort. And then, couples would get married on that area, right? Or hold weddings there. And I saw flyers for that and stuff. It was just really, really, I don't know, it was really a peaceful moment and stuff. I just remember that it was very chill. I had a very memorable ice cream sundae for sure. And that was awesome. Like, I never forgot. I gotta get maybe I'm craving some ice cream sundaes, guys. If I start talking about food, guys, I'm gonna trail off here into some like LOL things. So I'm gonna stop about the food. I still have to do a food lit manga journal on this podcast. We'll see if I have time to do it. Maybe not in the next couple of weeks or something. Maybe down the road. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I've been on road trips, across Minnesota and Nevada, where I am currently, right? I've been out to Prim and Boulder, and of course, right, the surrounding Las Vegas, Nevada area. and yeah, and then the neighboring cities, right? So yeah, I think last time I went, yeah, the last time I went on a plane trip, or was 2019, off to Dallas, Texas, or Fort Worth, right, for work opportunity. And yeah, and then after that I didn't really travel much. Things came up in 2020, some life events and stuff, so I didn't really travel. I haven't really traveled a bunch in the last 5 years, but did a lot of traveling when I was little with my folks. We used to go on tons of road trips, and I really miss all of our travel adventures and stuff. We don't really do that as much anymore, but my folks are really into travel channels and stuff, and various shows, right? Growing up, I was really into The Amazing Race. That television series where they predominantly, right, they are in teams of two, right, and they travel the world competing against each other. I watched a lot of that growing up, for sure. I haven't really seen the most recent seasons of that. I don't know if I will, but really enjoyed watching that with my folks. We used to love seeing the places they would visit and stuff, but then after a while we sort of stopped watching it together. But yeah, my mom was like, "Oh, she was thinking about applying one time to The Amazing Race or something, but she didn't end up doing it. But I don't think so anyway. I don't know. Did she? Did she submit an application or something? I don't remember. But anyways, she never got on the show or anything like that. But we were huge fans of it back then. I think just like places like Scrawl Place, right? Travel, not just like literary journals or magazines, that have place poetry, place writing, or place focused art, but travel blogs, travel sites, travel books, right, or travel shows. I think we oftentimes are um very in awe of like places we never knew existed, or just they're monumental perhaps, or very cool architecture. Like I first one will say, like, when I was in Malaysia, right, Kuala Lumpur, right, I never forgot some of the temples, and driving past the Batu caves, right, and all of that, and seeing the monkeys and all of that, and the people and the food, right, and you never forget some things, for sure. So I think when we're exposed to new things or new places, we have different experiences, right? When you visit a place for the first time, your experience isn't going to be always identical to another person's, right? I'm sure you guys, have you seen that trending thing? I think it's still trending a little bit. The thing where there's like it's like a British accent. The Yeah, so on isn't right on TikTok or something. There's this trending audio. It's like, nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday, right? Nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday. I'm gonna mess up the accent. That's not the full line. But yeah, that trending sound, like if you go into those videos or reels on those, right? There are some LOL ones, right? I saw like a woman with a spider, right? That was like crawling up the wall and just like trying to get at it. And then there's some, almost like blooper moments, or some like OMG stuff, right? Unexpected things to happen on vacays, right, that others have, and you're like, OMG, that actually happened. So I think we all have mixed experiences visiting a place. Sometimes we all have great experiences. Visiting a place, or maybe traveling to a place, or moving to a place for the first time. Or sometimes we have some not so great experiences, on a vacay or a trip or something. Maybe, it rained, or there was a huge storm, or, maybe, you went on a trip and something got canceled or something, right? So, or maybe like I mentioned on this podcast, right? Maybe your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, and then you're like, oh my God, right? So, yeah. So, but anyways, memories are attached to those experiences, whether they be good or bad memories, right? Places hold a lot of power with them, and connections, right? Photographs, the same thing. So when we see a photograph of maybe a place we were in or visited as a kid, we're like, it's almost like a time trip, essentially, right? It takes us back. Like, I've been looking, the past couple years, I've been looking back at some of my childhood photos and just thinking back to some of the trips I had, um, out to malls, out to, even some field trips for school, a ferry ride across one of the rivers, right, in Minnesota, and some museums. I've gone to some museums. Museums were a huge part of a lot of field trips back in Minnesota that I took, right? The Bakken Museum, the Science Museum, I've been to a couple times. And yeah, I've been to a museum in New York with my grandpa way back, when I think I was 7, and my mom was there. And then, yeah, the museums, and I've been to a museum in Malaysia. It was like a science, like type of like discovery type museum. And yeah, I haven't gone to a lot of the museums here actually where I am currently, but there is, of course, others know, right? They have, the Mob Museum and some other ones, right? I have not seen that museum to date. There's some, I think, some Air Force ones too, and there are also, I think I saw like a dinosaur type prehistoric one too, or some exhibits there. But yeah, I never forgot the Science Museum back in Minnesota because I really liked the Omni Theater experience, right? There were some cool, I think, I saw two documentary type films in that, like almost like in a circled bubble, right? The Omni Theater, I think that's what it's called, right? Never forgot that it's like a very encapsulated experience. It's not exactly like the Las Vegas Dome sphere here, right? But it felt like that in a sense, I think, a little bit, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, so there's so much you could do again with place poetry, place writing. Again, Scrawl Place, doesn't just focus on poetry, they accept, right, stories and, yeah. So you can get really creative with it, and yeah. I haven't, gone through all of these publications myself, read all of them, but I'm definitely going to take some time to read more about some of these places because it looks def cool. I mean, look at that blue whale, guys. I've done some whale art, digital collage, and some other whale related writes myself. So gotta read about that for sure. And yeah, so that's a roadside attraction, it looks like, right? Is that Catoosa, Oklahoma? So that's cool. I don't see. I didn't know that existed. It looks familiar, but I didn't know that existed. But that's really cool. So it may happen like you're just like scrolling or reading through the same thing on other lit language journals. You may be like, oh, I didn't know these places even existed. This looks really cool. So I personally love learning about places and that actually exist, right? That you can physically visit. And I think it's really cool. You can see others have done rights again around clinics and, um, yeah, and it's pretty awesome. Yeah. So there's a subway system inspired story here. There's yeah. So many amazing places in the world. You can, really, I would say, you don't necessarily have to focus on, a place you've been to a bunch of times. It could be a place you visited for the first time or inspired by that or, something like that. I think it's even more, powerful or stronger when you can actually say you've been to this place, you've experienced it, right? That you've actually been there and you had those moments and memories in time. Now, of course, you could do fictional rights and stuff like that, but I think something, you know, things that actually happened to you while you were in a place, right? That actually you witnessed, experienced, or did. I think that, it's just maybe it could be easier for you to write around that, or start from there as a starting point. Just saying. But yeah, very cool. All the places thus far that have been, in terms of rights that have been featured and published on Scrawl Place. Yeah, so I'm gonna dig through these later and check out some of these. Look at this, guys, the shoe. I love that, right? So yeah, um, yeah. So there are, yeah, there's so many places in the world, guys. So whatever you write about, just make sure you can again pinpoint it on a map. I think that is really important. Again, um, yeah. So I am a huge fan of again, learning about shops in various places, and it looks like others have done like coffee company bakery rights and stuff. I love reading about museums and historical, type of rights too and stuff around that. So that's really cool. Mystic Seaport Museum in Connecticut, looks like. So Yeah, again, again, places I didn't know existed, right? So you can learn a lot, for visiting lit magazine journals, just making pit stops yourself. It's almost like we go on like mini road trips ourselves when we're digging around online for lit magazine journals, right? It's like a whole experience in itself. So I like sharing it. All in all, I would say, Scroll Place is awesome. I love the focal point, right? Again, travel writing, yeah. Um, uh, the country guide, layout again, I must say, is very, very cool, very neat. I love this. I think that's pretty unique. I haven't come across another place thus far that has this like layout. So I really like that organization. That's really nice. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. There's like a membership join section. I think that's just for the newsletter, right? But yeah, that's basically Scroll Place. So you guys can check it out, see if you want to submit to Scroll Place. Open call windows again, you can typically check on the site, right? The submittable page that Scroll Place or submission management system. Chill subs, Duotrope, is updated, by the Duotrope team throughout the year. They check, right? And yeah, so that's all. Did I miss anything, guys? So yeah, I think that's it. So, oh yeah, so I just want to circle back here, to place, right? So there are other lit magazine journals out there that focus on places. Let's just check this out because I'm curious. On the chill subs list here of places, I think my page locked up because sometimes when you sit too long on a page, it just like you have to refresh it. So here we go. So yeah, this was last updated. Looks like September 18th, 2025. So we have 5 South, Whale Road Review, The Common, Empty House Press, Scroll Place, Liminal Transit Review, Exposition Review, Joyland, About Place Journal, Terrain. I'm not going to read all of these off for you guys, but yeah, you can see Permafrost Magazine. So yeah, I'm going to check out that one maybe. We'll see. And then, yeah, so keep in mind on this list, sometimes when you click in the list, not all of these lit magazine journals may be active or open for submissions, just keep that in mind. But nevertheless, there's Nowhere magazine. So yeah, that reminds me of that song I was listening to just the other day. So there's a song, just some song recs, you guys. I either give movie recs, song recs, or yeah, sometimes on my podcast. So Nowhere is a cool song, also by Noxtros, Noxtros. And then Places is a song, I think by Natalie Red that I was listening to that I like really like quite a bit. Yeah, so you should check out that song by Natalie Red. Yeah, Places. I think it's Places of an S. I could be wrong. But yeah, that song's quite catchy. So songs for you to check out, guys. Natalie Red. Yeah, that's Red, last name. And Natalie is the first name. So Noxtros, Nowhere, and Places by Natalie Red. Those are two songs that I think are pretty cool. Of course, I have I even made well yeah, there are some fun road trip playlists out there. I think we all have like our own road trip or travel playlist that we make or something. But anyways, if you guys ever comment on the podcast or anything, totally let me know if this episode helped you or you want to share your favorite place in the world or something, feel free to share. Totally, I don't mind. But yeah, you can, really again, I think Scroll Place goes to show you can create a lit mag or journal. Again, I mentioned this several times, but around something like a topic that you really love. In this case, there's travel, right? So yeah, and visiting places, right? You could even do a lit mag or journal that focuses on nothing but museums, right? You could do that, right? Nothing but maybe abstract statues that exist in the world or abstract art sculptures, I mean, right? You could do something like that. Art museums, you could do a lot, right? There are a lot of great focal points you could really touch base on, right? And I think it's especially very cool when you center it around something you absolutely love. Now, some lit magazine journals are very open themed or not really have a central focus, but I really like, again, seeing the different focuses that, a lot of magazines and lit magazine journals have. It makes it very unique and stand out from other places. Yeah, every lit magazine journal again has a different vibe or sort of like, again, focal point. So yeah, yeah. Um So that's all I can think of. Yeah, so definitely read more of Scrawl Place, check it out, and that's pretty much it. I can't really think of anything else. So yeah, again, really like that Google Map section and the layout and structure of Scroll Place. I'll let you guys know if I ever get any I share my journey also through the Lit Mag community and myself as a writer and publisher and and working in the Lit Mag space myself. So I'll let you guys know if I have any news or updates myself personally. But for the most part, I'm breaking from submitting to places for quite some time. But from time to time I do try, but yeah, I think I'm gonna break pretty much because I have some stuff in my own lit manga journal, right? Dippy. So yeah. Love travel poetry, love travel writing, and take care, guys. So Scrawl Place, check it out again. That's SCRAWLPLACE. Not to be confused, there is a Scrawl magazine out there, I think based in Canada, and there might be another I think Scrawl related series out there. But yeah, don't confuse it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think again, Andy has done a great job with Scrawl Place thus far, and it's really awesome that he is able to, as of 2025, still it looks like pay writers for their work. $35 per piece. I can't remember if the first time I submitted to them if it was different or if it stayed like that at $35. But some places are able to increase that or change that, or In any case, very cool what Scrawl Place does. Yeah, so check it out, and maybe you've been thinking about, as you're listening to, some trips you've taken, some road trips or some places that are very close to your heart, right, that you maybe want to write about or feel inspired to. And I totally suggest you do so, right? It's cool how we can capture memories in time or do writes around that. Could be fictional, could be non-fictional, right? But it's cool how we can encapsulate that in a piece of writing or even art, right? Yeah, so that's all, guys. So take care. Have awesome days ahead. Next episode, I think we're gonna cover maybe one more literary magazine or journal, and then maybe I'll touch base on some other fun stuff. Maybe some resources again for maybe submitters and founding editors, or maybe even some apps and stuff. As just a writer in general, that maybe you can check out that are pretty neat. I was thinking back to Basho, right? What I discussed earlier, right? So there was something I read or did through a mobile app in terms of voice reads. So that was pretty neat functionality that I wanted to maybe share in this podcast, or just some pretty interesting community apps, outside of lit magazine journals or that space, because it's fun, just to share things in the writing or lit mag world, or things that may help you as a writer, and yeah, or just to various community apps and spaces I've discussed also in this podcast a little bit. I think I mentioned in an episode, but maybe not. I'll circle back to what I'm talking about maybe in a future episode in terms of certain apps, or covering maybe them a little bit more individually. But yeah, we're gonna do another Litmaker journal. And take care, guys. I do see your comments if you have been, posting anything on one of the channels you're listening this to. Again, I think it's easier when you're able to see video on some platforms, right? So Spotify, YouTube, and I put the video series elsewhere too. And I'll try to do maybe some fun, maybe we'll see. I'm not sure, interviews of some kind with the series. I don't know if it's going to be video or just typed out, text based at all, but we'll see. So that's all. Take care and bye. Yeah. P.S. guys, so just something I thought of here. So I was thinking about some other trips or memorable things. I just want to say, so when I was a kid or back in elementary school, we went on a field trip to Lilydale Regional Park, or the fossil hunting, field trips and stuff. Never forgot that. I think that made me really in tune to like hoping to maybe go into archaeology one day or something, but I didn't end up doing that at all. But I always thought fossil hunting was very cool and like discovering things, right? So yeah. And Fort Snelling was another field trip, and way, way back. And then I was thinking about, I saw that lake, right, that I had shared with you guys earlier while I was just browsing around Scrawl Place, but I don't think it was that lake specifically. But yeah, it could have been, I don't know, but I took field trips to various lakes, and again, a ferry ride down to, a river in Minnesota. and went on some fishing trips with my folks, right? Totally, learned to fish. Wasn't very good, didn't catch anything massive. I think my dad caught some fish, but the last trip we went fishing trip wise, um, you know, I was I can't remember where exactly it was, but there was this bridge, and that bridge ended up being like for a while quite a bit like my pen name like profile photo or something, but it was so memorable because I never forgot that bridge. But the fish we caught there, we didn't really catch anything, but nothing but baby fish, like very small, like guppy type. Like, were they minnows? I don't remember what they were. No, but they were super small fish. Anyways, nothing but small fish overall. It took me a while before I could even get comfortable with, the whole worm thing and fish and like the hooks. And I was like really scared at first, but then I got used to it. I just like said, I just got to, try it, try fishing. You got to try things once in your life, right? So fishing, I've tried it a couple times, my folks, and we did predominantly catch and release, right? And it was really interesting, catching fish. Well, I didn't really catch any fish. I caught again just like baby fish on our last trip, nothing but small fish. We were like, there are no fish here. They said there'd be fish, right? But there's a whole skill behind fishing, obviously. But never forgot that. I had this like quite some time when I was little, like this introductory kid, like fishing kit too, before those trips too. And like the little bob, like it was red and a white, not white, but a yellow fishing box. And I'd used that fishing box actually for my fossil hunting trip too, for storing everything. I cleared everything out because it had some cool compartments and everything. It just ended up working out. So, or I had used it for storing all my fossils from the trip that we were able to, keep. And back then it was a lot of fun. I fell down, I think, a hill or something, all the way down on my back and rolled, and no one saw me fall, or at least I don't think, maybe one person did. But I like tumbled all the way down and cut, and it was just like almost got slashed by some glass on the way down. And then further down, there was a tree that had fallen, and we had to go over it. But I, for some reason, decided to go under it, and I don't know why. That was really dumb. I went around the tougher part of it, and I scraped my knee, I think. And then there's this cave section where we all tried to stand up in this cave pocket. And I climbed down into this like pocket where there was like a bunch of like a giant crater pocket too. I climbed all the way down and then I climbed back up. And I was surprised I even was able to climb back up because I didn't have a lot of upper body strength back then, or I didn't think so anyway. But, anyways, guys, some LOL memories. So I just think back all the field trips. So just like that, right? Talking about Scrawl Plays, I thought of all these other memories I have, and I'm sure growing up, or if you're listening to this as a kid, you probably had some LOL field trips or some that you never forgot, right? Um, for me, I love, like, again, museums. I love bookshops. I love bakeries. I love the Wedge Food Co-op's bakery always, and Seward Food Co-op bakery. A huge fan of those growing up. And yeah, over here I've gotten some stuff. Well, when we moved here, I went quite a bit, and we got some baked goods and stuff. And yeah, but a little bit too on the sweet side for sure. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, so lots of memories, right? I think, whenever we do something, or go to a place for the first time again, it just sticks in our mind a little bit better. Where we go there, I think every family or person has like maybe a tradition to go to a place, maybe for the summer or for a birthday or for celebrating an anniversary or something like that, there are places that are special to us. You never forget the first place you met someone. Now, just to clarify, right? A place, again, for Scrawl Place, has to be a physical location. So nothing. I can't remember if I mentioned this during the podcast, but nothing as vague as like your mind, right? As Andy said in that interview with Chill Subs, and it couldn't be like, oh, the virtual wide web, right? That doesn't count. It has to be, again, a place you can, as you saw, right, the Google Maps square or rectangle right box at the bottom, right? It has to be something you could like geographically pinpoint and say, these are the coordinates, right? This is exactly where it is in the world, and it exists, right? You can physically go there. So yeah, I was just having memories of my dad, pulling out the map in the car, and my mom trying to figure out places and navigating all that stuff. I'm not a expert navigator or anything like that myself. I'm horrible at that stuff, but yeah, I was just thinking back. So yeah, I love explorer type movies. Love the older Lost World films and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. So that's pretty much it, guys. Take care, and that's all. I just wanted to tack that on because I thought of some additional memory clips. Just want to share. Technically, this is also like an audio diary series for me, slash also to benefit other submitters, poets, publishers, and communities. So again, next episode we'll probably do another journal. Just a heads up, and yeah.